Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're following so far, you'll know that we have taken a trip. This is our grand European trip, and we've been to 2 countries already, and we're here now in our 3rd on our way to Italy. And we started out in London, and all the experiences that we had there we documented, and then we went over to France across the English channel, went to the Eiffel Tower and a bunch of other things to include Versailles, and it was a wonderful time that we had in France. And now we're on our way to Italy. Now, if you haven't seen any of the other 2 videos, I recommend you go there and take a look at those videos. But the good news is you don't have to watch the videos in turn. You can watch this video. They don't have to be in order. So don't feel that because you're watching this video, you're going to be at a loss as far as what we did. And you can see this video has lots of highlights about maybe some of the high moments that we did while we were in London and in France. And now we're excited about going to Italy. Now, just like last time when we took the train from London to France, we're going to take the train again to Italy. And the train experience is something that we really wanted to do. And the last time it was overnight, but this time it's during the day. And the Italy that we went through had such beautiful mountains. One of the things we try to do is maximize our time on the train so that while we're on the train, we're actually either asleep or we're making good time. I don't want to spend the best time of the day on a train, but I would recommend you don't do that when it comes to going to Italy, because the Alps and the mountains are absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, my camera does not capture the true beauty of traveling on the train, but this is a treat all in and of itself. It's one of the things that we actually look forward to doing. Our kids are from the DC metropolitan area. They're used to the metro. They've taken the metro before, but it's only like short trips. They don't have any experience in being on the train for long periods of time, and then being on the train is not something they normally do or something that I normally do. So it was a treat for all of us to be on board the train. So we are on our way to Italy, and we're going to explore and travel all around Italy and show you everything that that country has to offer starting now. The first thing I want to show you before we even get traveling is going to be our base station. This is our Airbnb, and throughout the entire trip we stayed in Airbnbs. We didn't stay in any hotels. Hotels, in our opinion, was a little bit more expensive. We had a family of 6, so we needed more room, and also we felt that having a kitchen gave us an opportunity to make lunch and breakfast and kind of cut down on our meal costs and give us a little bit more leg room. Now, generally speaking, no matter where you go, the apartments, or not condos, but I guess your apartments. The apartments that you stay in tend to be small. We didn't stay in any single family houses. More than likely, if you're staying in an Airbnb, it's going to be an apartment condo type thing. And this was probably the nicest one that we have had an opportunity to stay in. And I can't say enough about how much space it is. As far as the decor wise, you can see for yourself and judge for yourself what you think about the decor of the apartment. But I thought it was really nice. It was a couple flights up, which wasn't a big deal. The first day getting our luggage up to 3 flights of stairs was a bit much, but after that it wasn't an issue whatsoever. And the good news is that it wasn't that far away from downtown. We took a bus and we were able to get right down into the heart of Italy, the Colosseum, and all the major attractions right down in the heart of Italy. But I just want to give you an idea of not just what our Airbnb looked like, but if you're looking now, you're going to see how much it costs. And cost of our accommodation tends to be one of our more major expenditures. When it comes to the location that we stayed, my wife was the person who picked the locations. And one of the criteria that she used was she wanted places that had food stores, grocery stores that were relatively close by. This was because we planned to eat every single breakfast within the apartment, but when it came to lunch and dinner, we ate most of those out. We ate all of our dinners outside, and for the most part, we ate about half the lunches were at restaurants or places outside of our apartment, but for the most part, we created about half the meals inside the apartment because they had a full kitchen, and that saved us a lot of money. Now, one of the things, the recommendations I want to make to you, if you decide to rent a place, make sure to find out if it has a grocery store within walking distance. And fortunate for us, that's one of the criteria that we did, and there is two big grocery stores that are relatively very close to us. We would go there and we would buy all our juices and water and fruits, vegetables, and lunch meat sandwiches, and then we would always get something that we didn't recognize. Not just one thing, but quite a few things that they didn't have in the United States. And we wanted our kids to try different types of food and everything else, and that was a great part of the experience. We planned to eat out because we wanted eating out and trying different things to be a part of the experience. Now, when it came to food, one of the things my kids wanted to try more than almost anything else was pizza. Pizza, I'm not sure if it's originated in Italy. I believe it did. But it's, of course, Italy and Italians are known for great pizza. So we had pizza prepared a variety of different ways. And we had pizza not every day, but it felt like every day that we had some type of pizza. And in my opinion, you're not gonna agree with this, because I've told it to my kids and other people since I've came back, and they all think I'm crazy. But the best pizza I have ever had, and I still think to this day, is Papa John's. And I know you're gonna you're not gonna agree with that. But for me, the Italian pizza was different. It was new, but I still love Papa John's pizza. That, to me, is the original how pizza is supposed to taste. However, when you go abroad, you have to try it because they make it. There's no standard way to make it, and it's all very different. Everybody's a little different, but that's one of the treats that we did, was that we had a lot of pizza and we ate out because the food experience was a big part. But my big tip again to you is pick a location that has a grocery store that's relatively close to where you're staying. Let me take time now to talk about the differences between Rome and, say, what I experienced in London or France or Paris, specifically Paris. When I was in Rome, I felt like I'd stepped back into the past, and there were historic ruins all over the place. Now, there are some that you had to pay for, like the Colosseum, and the Colosseum is beautiful. We went for a tour, and the Forum, and the Fountain, and all the other historic sites that are scattered all around Italy. But even beyond those sites, as you're walking or driving, you will come across historic parts of Rome that look absolutely ancient. And that's the big difference, in my opinion, between the two cities. Also, I felt that Rome was far more compact. I could get away with walking around and exploring huge sections of Rome by just walking and taking the bus. While Paris, I feel Paris is much bigger, and London I also felt had a larger footprint. But the main difference that stood out between the two cities is how old Rome is compared to the other cities. Don't get me wrong, there are modern sections of Rome, and there are old sections of Paris as well as London, but the differences were strikingly noticeable when you were in Rome. Here's something that we got right while we were staying in Rome, is that the location of our Airbnb wasn't that far away from downtown Rome, where the Colosseum is. So we were literally just one bus ride away. We weren't able to walk there. We didn't utilize the subway system, nor did we take Uber that much while we were there. We relied primarily on not the subway, but on the bus system. And I strongly recommend you get Google Maps, because Google Maps will tell you exactly what bus to take. And even though we didn't speak the language, the hardest part about it for us was to find what side of the road to stand on in order to take the bus. And once we got that down on the first day, it wasn't a problem whatsoever navigating and using the bus system to figure out where we were and where we needed to go, using Google Maps, of course. Now, all along the way, as we're talking about my travels or our travels with my family throughout Europe, I'm going to be talking about new things in each segment that I haven't talked about in the rest. And in this segment, one of the things I'm going to talk about that you haven't heard before are our luggage, our bags. We tried to pack as little as possible, because we knew that we were going to be moving from city to city, and in the subway, and we had young kids, and if somebody got sick, then another person we had to carry their luggage. So we pack very, very light. Each person had one luggage and then a backpack, and everybody had a backpack while they were traveling throughout the cities through the days. Now, I strongly recommend you get a backpack that is comfortable, that has a strap around the waist. The waist is able to carry far more than the back can. After a while, the backpack is going to start putting strain on your shoulders. But if you have a waist strap, it makes it much, much more easier. Also, you can carry water, you can carry a soda, drink, snacks, candy, binoculars, your cell phone, maybe some notes and a pen and a pad, makeup, umbrella, ponchos, you name it. You can throw all that stuff in the backpack and walk around and know that if anything happens, that you're going to be fine. Now, I carried a lot of filming equipment. It wasn't too big and too heavy because I'm not one of those huge YouTubers. I just try to document my life and my travels, but it's not a theatrical production where we're having lighting and sound and all that kind of stuff. This right here is a voiceover where I'm just talking to you about my travels and I'm overlaying it with pictures. So I'm not a huge YouTuber, so it's not like I have a crew and we're working as a team. It's just me traveling around and filming what I'm seeing and what I'm doing. But I recommend that everybody have a good, sturdy backpack. Now, when it comes to safety, people will take things from you no matter where you are in the world. But I read a lot about things happening specifically in Rome. So if you're having a backpack, make sure that the zipper on the very outer part of it doesn't have anything important. It doesn't have money, passports, all that stuff. You should not take your passport or any travel documents with you while you're traveling. You should have your ID, you should have credit cards and currency, but you don't try to take anything super valuable that if you lose it, you're absolutely stuck. Now, especially when you're traveling with young kids, you have to kind of make sure that you have all of their valuables accounted for when you leave any major space. Everyone's checking for their cell phones and their money, their wallets, all that major stuff before you actually leave places. But I can't emphasize enough how having a good backpack is going to help you navigate wherever you are exceptionally well. If you are in Rome, by a mile, the number one attraction that you absolutely must see is going to be the Colosseum. I mean, it's known the world over. If you saw a picture of the Colosseum and showed it to people who lived in the far reaches of the world, they very well might know exactly what it is. It's engineering marvel. I think as many as 50,000 spectators, 50 to 80,000 spectators could have been held there at any given time, and it is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. It is an absolute marvel. Now, when you go and see the Colosseum, here's a couple of things to keep in mind. We were there in the middle of summer, so it's the high season. It's very hot, and you'll have an opportunity to just get an entry pass to go and see it, or you can go with a guide. And I strongly recommend you go with a guide. Normally, I like to do things on my own, but on this occasion and many occasions during the trip, I strongly recommend you get a guide. And here's why. There's going to be things you're going to look at, and unless you've done the deep dive before you actually do your trip, you're not going to know what you're looking at, and neither will your children. So if you have a guide who is there to explain it to you, walk you through it, answer any questions, and that's if you're traveling with your kids and your family, you want them to learn. You want them to ask questions and be able to give intelligent responses to it. And if you have a guide who understands the history of the Colosseum, you're going to be in far better shape than, say, if you were trying to Google it and trying to get internet signal and trying to figure it out on your own, or to try to reach the information podiums that are available throughout the Colosseum. It's a much better, smoother operation if you have your guide.
So, when they open Colosseum, there are around 50,000 spectators. With the last order, Colosseum can reach about 75,000. Some said even 80,000 spectators. Now here is let's say yes or no. If you read 5 books about Colosseum, each book will tell you a different number. But anyway, pretty big for that time. Now we have 80,000, 70,000. They have 2,000 themselves. But I love the most of.
Not only does it go faster by having your guide, but it's also far more enriching. Now, you can do it on your own. There's that too as well. And I'm very frugal. And when it comes to spending extra money, it's not something I typically do. But I found things to be pretty affordable. And if you're going to spend all that money to go halfway around the world to see something that's hundreds, maybe even thousands of years old, why not do it right? Included in our ticket to the Colosseum was the Roman Forum. And the Forum is right next to the Colosseum. It's within walking distance. And it's the religious and political commercial center of ancient Rome. It has a lot of historic buildings that are in various state of demolition, or ancient buildings that are been preserved is the best way for me to say it, for people to walk through and see it. Now, one of the mistakes that we made was that we had a guide for the Colosseum, and it was just for the Colosseum. We did not get a guide for the Forum. So we did the Forum on our own, and it was a stark difference, because when we walked through the Forum, we were just walking through the Forum. It wasn't a situation where we were learning anything. There wasn't anybody there to ask any questions. It didn't have as many information podiums where you could actually read and get to learn and understand stuff. It was just us walking through and looking at buildings that were half built. We didn't know what buildings were what things stood for. There were some members and people around who had guides, and you could listen to them for a short time, but eventually they would move on and you couldn't just follow the group. So having a guide in the Forum area, I thought would have been so much better. However, it's one of these logistical things that we couldn't do on the fly. And by the time we thought to get a guide, trying to figure out how to do that and navigate that experience, that wasn't going to work. So it's one of these things that you have to do in advance. However, I thought the Forum was just beautiful. It was a lot of walking. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're there on a hot day and it seems like the sun bakes into the brick, and then the brick resonates that heat. It was just super hot. It's hard to explain by you looking at the photographs and understanding how hot it is. But if you go into summertime, it can get super, super hot. Talking about dehydration in the last segment, this is a good segue into what we're going to talk about now. And dehydration is a major issue, especially if you go in the summertime when it's really hot. It's estimated that as many as 70% of American adults are dehydrated. So dehydration can lead to headache, fatigue. You can faint, pass out, you need medical attention. It can cause you to feel like nauseous, like you want to throw up. It's a host of medical challenges that you don't want to endure while you're traveling. One of the big recommendations I make to you, especially if you're having kids, and even just one child being down is going to put a major, massive problem with your vacation. Have them drink all the time. I make my kids drink before they leave the house, while throughout the entire day, and when they get back in the house, they're drinking all the time. Now, one of the things I saw was these fountains, these Rome's free water fountain systems. They were all over the place. I didn't have a map to find out where they were, but I would come across them periodically enough that if I had an empty bottle, it was easy for me to fill it up. Now, using a bathroom is a problem because you have to go somewhere that has a bathroom, and then you have to pay to actually get into the bathroom. So having these water dispensaries around was a great way for you to fill up without having access to running water. And even though the water may be all the same pipes and everything else, I don't want to fill up my water bottle from a tap in the bathroom. I feel somehow that is dirty water. But I know it's probably not the case. I'm pretty sure it's not the case. But there were these water dispensaries all over the place, and from what I understand and based on my experience, the water is certainly drinkable and it tastes just perfectly fine, and we filled up on these all the time. So definitely bring not just water with you, but also keep the bottle so that you can fill it up and drink from these dispensaries, and do so throughout the day. That way no one gets sick and you don't have to deal with dehydration. A little bit earlier, we talked about food, but that was more like just talking really about pizza. But when it comes to food, you're not going to find a whole lot of American brands. In fact, I could count on one hand how many American stores I saw when it comes to McDonald's or Subway or any type of known American brand. I didn't see that many, with the exception of a Starbucks in Rome. So be prepared to eat foods that you have never had before and in places that you've never normally ate before. Now, there were food trucks that were available. A big thing for us, in addition to eating the pizza, was gelato. We ate a ton of gelato. It was, yeah, I love ice cream, so yeah, we just kept on eating ice cream all the time. So there's lots of gelato. We talked about the grocery store. That's a great way to save food. And when it comes to outdoor eating, we ate at outdoor places a lot, where we ordered and then we had meals that were outside on little tables right next to the store where we were eating. We tried to eat very quickly because we didn't want to spend a lot of time doing that. We wanted to get moving and get where we were going to go. But it was a big part of where we ate. There was plenty of other options. The food stalls, you could eat, find places in front of stores. We ate in train station, and it was just, it was a lot of places that we ate. So there was no real, I wouldn't say there was no real plan as far as eating. It was just like when we got hungry, we would try to find somewhere that everyone would agree on. And that's another thing. Not everybody is going to agree. And, you know, the good thing is that we're parents and we just forced the issue. But we just kind of gave people different turns. One time, one person picked where to eat, and then the next time another person picked. And if they were taking too long, we would just make the choice for them. But for the most part, wherever we ate was convenient. It wasn't planned. It wasn't organized. When we got hungry, we all just ate. Now, and that's another thing. I would strongly recommend everybody eat all at the same time. Because if you have some people who are hungry and others who are not, it's going to be hard to sit down to have dinner. Because again, I have two who are not going to eat because they're not hungry, and then as soon as dinner is over and about 2 hours into wherever you are the next, then they're hungry, and then you have to either stop to go get them something to eat, or just you have them walk around hungry and complaining. So definitely everybody should eat together. Just like in London and in France, having your cell phone is going to be a massive help. It helped us communicate with each other. The fact that my kids' phones was able to work, and even though mine was not, it helped not just in us communicating with each other, but also with transportation. Being able to find buses, which saved us a lot of money on Uber or the cabs. So being able to communicate one with another using our cell phones was instrumental. So whatever you can do to make sure that you have cell phone coverage, do it. My recommendation, and I do not work for the phone company, is whatever method is the most seamless. The last thing you want to do is be like me and have communication challenges while you're abroad. And I constantly would have to be borrowing my kid's cell phone to check the internet and also do a whole lot of different functions. And it's great to have your own working device. If you are a parent, make sure that your device is operational. Don't be like me. And thankfully my kids were able to back me up. But make sure you sort out the cell phone situations before you leave the United States. Of all the countries and places I've visited, and so far this is number 3, Rome unfortunately had the most trash and graffiti. England was, I wouldn't say spotless, but my gosh, it was clean. And then France was also something to behold. There was graffiti in France too as well, but nothing compared to the graffiti that I saw while I was in Italy. It was unfortunately very disheartening, because you look at the buildings and the buildings are absolutely beautiful and the environment's beautiful, and you're dealing with an ancient city, and then walk around and see all the graffiti on everything everywhere. You're like, wow, I wish these people had more pride in their city enough not to completely destroy it with just random spray paint. When it came to mobility, for the most part, while we were traveling around in Rome, we took the bus. Thankfully, our Airbnb wasn't that far away. We never had an opportunity to use a subway system, but there is a subway system available. We did use the train system to get to Versailles, and that's a completely separate video on my channel, so check that out. But the train system we used, but we didn't use the underground subway system. We used Uber quite a bit, and we felt that Uber was less expensive than a cab. The cab was maybe 25-30% more expensive based on my estimates when I looked at using one versus the other. So we pretty much stuck to Uber, but there was cabs available. Cabs cost more, but you can just walk out and you can get one. When it comes to overall cost, when it comes to transportation, it didn't cost us that much at all to get around, largely because we were close and we used bus, and the bus system didn't cost that much. Now, when it comes to different types of ways of getting around, there were lots of small cars and motorcycles. When it came to scooters, there was lots of scooters. One of the challenges that I did find when it came to biking and things like that, there were some sections that you could bike, but when it came to the old historic area of Rome, I felt it was too tight a space. I felt the way people drove was, I'm not saying people drove crazy, but I didn't feel comfortable enough to have me and my kids on a bicycle. There was also, you look at the roadway and the pavement, they had cobblestone and bricks, and the pavements that was not, in my opinion, conducive to riding a bike. And just the way the city is organized, it was a little bit more hilly and harder to navigate. So I did not feel comfortable riding a bicycle. However, I did see plenty of people on bicycles. So I don't want to give you the impression that if you rent a scooter or a bike, that's something that's completely untenable, because the reality is I saw plenty of people doing it. I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. And I don't want it to stop your ability to do what you feel comfortable doing. But being an avid biker, I just didn't feel comfortable biking. When it comes to pedestrians and crossing roadways, of the 3 cities I've been in so far, I gotta say, Rome probably is not. It's at the bottom of the list. However, it's not that far from the rest, and I didn't feel that crossing the roadways was a major challenge. Now, having said that, please do not think it's a pedestrian-friendly city. I'm not saying it is. What I am saying is that I didn't feel that it was a major issue. I felt people waited, especially on busy roadways, until the light changed for them to cross, and I didn't feel like it was an issue to even note. But I've noted that plenty of people in videos before coming here were talking about intersections and how pedestrians, and you have to watch out for all these cars, and I just didn't feel that was the case. Something that we did in France and in London was that we rode our bicycles, and it gave us an opportunity to get a great understanding of the environment and what's close by, and just being able to see a lot of things in a short period of time. When we were in Rome, I felt that we did a lot more walking than we did in some of the other cities. I didn't felt that things were close enough where you didn't want to take an Uber to get there, but also you didn't want to take a bus or the train. It was just more convenient to walk. So what we ended up doing while we were there was that we walked a lot more than we did in some of the other cities. And here's the deal. While we were in France and some of the other locations, we walked a tremendous amount. So having said all that, I just felt that Rome was a far more walkable city, and it was a beautiful city. We would go down alleyways and it would just look so picturesque. I love walking around in Rome, more so than I did in Paris or in London. So if you like to walk, Rome is going to be the city for you. Of all the cities that we've been to so far, if you have a mobility challenge where you're in a wheelchair, some type of a scooter type device, Rome is going to be the most challenging. Now, don't get me wrong. I saw people who were in wheelchair and they were getting it done. However, it was a lot of effort, and they were getting help from other people. I saw people who were pushing strollers and they were just having a hard time going over the cobblestones. If you want to look at the ancient city, the ancient part of Rome, it's going to be a challenge if you cannot easily walk around. I would definitely get comfortable shoes. We were doing 20,000 steps, say in London and in in Paris, Rome was like 25,000 steps. So not only is it not necessarily convenient if you have mobility challenge, you're going to be doing a lot more walking, even if you're able-bodied. If you are thinking about going on a European trip, there's one thing that you're going to want to have with you, and it's going to be your phone, because your phone has a camera. And if you're not using your camera, you want to have something that has plenty of space on it to take lots of pictures. Because one of the things I saw people doing was taking tons of photographs and video. The last thing you want to do is show up with your phone full and then have to make a determination of what to delete and what to keep. And that's taking up time because you have to go through a bunch of photos. So make sure you bring your phone that's empty, that's able to take lots of pictures. Or if you're going to use the cloud, make sure you have enough cloud storage room and space. And I like a DSLR camera, which is one of those big, heavy cameras, because I think they take the best photos. There's going to be so many picturesque, photogenic moments that you're going to come across that you're going to want to make sure that you have the tools and resources to be able to capture some of the most epic sceneries that you can imagine. So definitely make sure that, if nothing else, have your phone clear enough so you can take lots of pictures. Not to mention, you're going to take pictures so you can show off to people and say, hey, look what I see and did, and look what I experienced. Because you know most of us do it, especially the young folks who are coming in. Especially you're bringing a family, your kids are going to want to share those moments. I remember a story with my youngest child where he was telling his friends about the vacation he went on. And at the time, he did not have a cell phone. And they were like, oh man, you're lying. And then he comes to me and he's like, Dad, when I get my phone, send me the pictures that you took so that I can tell my friends where I've been and what I see. It's not, but maybe it is being bragging a bit, to say I've done this, but you're going to want to have a picture to remember the experience and to remember one of the greatest vacations you ever took. You definitely want to make sure you bring something to capture that. When it comes to safety and security, Rome is right there with France when it comes to seeing police. I didn't see a lot of law enforcement when I was in London. However, I saw it when I was in France, and we saw it when we were in Rome. Not only did we see folks who were police officers, they looked like they were members of the military. And I can't say why, but at the major sites that you go to, I guess because of terrorists who want to destroy things, you'll find a lot of military folks who don't look anything like civil law enforcement. It wasn't scary, and they seemed to be quite friendly. I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel threatened or unsafe anytime I was in Rome. There are a lot of police officers, not police officers, but there are a lot of military and a heavy police presence, especially at the major historical sites. So far, of the 3 cities I've been in, Rome, unfortunately, I saw the most poverty. There were people that were begging at every turn, almost, it seems. So much so that I got a lot of video of it. I don't like showing people like this, but there is that degree of poverty there. I didn't encourage it by leaving any tip because I didn't have much cash on me to begin with, but it can be just not disturbing, but it can be a little bit it kind of brings you down when you look at people who are in dire straits, and we saw quite a few of that while we were in Rome. Poverty apparently is everywhere. When you're in Rome, or on a European vacation in general, you're going to be on the move, and we were on the move all the time. However, we didn't necessarily want to be on the move all the time. And at times we wanted to stop, take a break, and just gather our bearings and slow it down a bit. There wasn't that many opportunities for us to do that in Rome. When it comes to seating, you're not going to find a lot of areas that you're going to be able to sit down and just take it all in or just relax. The ones I'm showing you right now are few and far between. When you come, wear comfortable shoes and prepare to be on your feet for the entire day. Whenever I go on vacation, and I'm convinced it's not just me, but I feel that people come across things that are just spontaneous. You can't ever plan for these things. For us, it was a wedding. There was a wedding. We saw the car go by. We saw the church. We knew that there was a wedding going on. So the one thing was a wedding. And then we saw a filming of a movie. So that was quite interesting. And it was right there next to the Colosseum. And it was a Roman someone who was dressed in like Roman attire. I'm not sure what movie it was or what was happening, but there was that too as well. But one of the things that we had hoped to see was a lot of street performers. And the street performers you're seeing now is when we were in Venice. When we were in Rome, we didn't see any. We were there for a couple of days and we just thought we would see street performers and be able to have that cultural experience and that entertainment value. But there was really none of that was there. So that was kind of a letdown that we didn't really see anything spontaneous in Rome except for the wedding and the movie that was being filmed. Most people who go on vacation want to take back a little bit of that vacation with them. Either going to be some kind of trinket or jigamazig. I made that word up. But it's going to be something to signify that I was there, a way to jog your memory. For me, it's t-shirts. Wherever I go, I try to buy a t-shirt. That way, when I put it on all day long, I'm thinking, I got this in London because it says London right on it. And then I remember that experience. So for you, it could be something else. Plenty of locations for you to buy stuff. People will be coming up to you and selling you things all day long. Folks who are in all sorts of varying degrees of poverty. You can tell these people don't have any license. They're not supposed to be doing it because every time they see the police, they kind of scurry away. But there'll be plenty of people that come up to you with all sorts of goodies and knickknacks to try to get you to buy. And also street vendors, people who are selling artwork. And I wanted to buy some of the artwork because I thought it was exceptionally done. I'm not a big artist per se, but I can tell when you have artwork that speaks to me, and it did speak to me. However, I just had a hard time thinking, how am I going to carry this home? So the big lesson here is make space in your suitcase for the stuff that you're going to take home. My wife actually brought a whole entire separate bag and suitcase that she took home, and then she wouldn't let me use it because I told her not to take anything I wanted home. So if you're watching this video, make sure you leave space. Don't pack so tight that you're not going to be able to take stuff home. And we packed very tight. Also, take and buy souvenirs that you think that you're going to use, and I wouldn't say need because you don't need any of it, but souvenirs that are going to speak to you, because otherwise it's going to end up on your yard at a yard sale. Fortunate for us, we were there for several weeks and not one day did it rain. I can't say you'll have that degree of luck. However, we made plans, and our plans were kind of spontaneous because we had to account for days that it would rain. And if it did, what are we going to do that's inside? And if we're inside, what are we going to do that's outside if it's not raining? So our plans were wide open. Every day we sat down, we figured it out, we talked it out, and then we executed it the next day. But it was largely based on the weather forecast. I say if you're going on a European vacation, you have to realize that there's some things that you're just not going to be able to see. There's things that you're going to have to leave on the table, and it's going to hurt. But if you want to see something, try to get it done, in my opinion, on the first day. Do not let good weather go to waste. So if you want to see it, the things that are first must do on your to-do list, try to get those done right away, because you never know what's going to happen around the corner. Or in the future, I should say. In the future is probably a better way to say it. There are lots of things that you will see and find in Rome. But one of the things that you're not going to find is a lot of green space. We didn't come across almost any parks or open areas that we were like, wow, there's a lot of trees here. Oh, there's some grass. It's easy to walk around the city and not see any of this. There was just not a lot of green space. Also, if you're planning on going to a major historical site, it might not be open. What I mean by that is it's constantly, things are under construction. The Colosseum, they were doing some work to it. That's one of the major draws. But there were things in and around the Colosseum that were major historical sites that were under construction or were covered up because they were doing repair or some kind of preservation work to it. So you have to keep that in mind, that not everything you're going to see and do is going to be available. Now, if you want to get an overview as far as what's available, I recommend the big bus. It's in almost every major tourist attraction area. You can get on it for about $50. You can drive around and see all the major sites and experience what you want to see and what you don't want to see. Not to mention you get a lay of the land. So I recommend that you could probably do that if you don't have a good idea of what to do and see or where things are. While we were in Rome, we had the opportunity to take 3 day trips. And the first one, I leave the best for last. That way it'll keep you listening. It'll help my YouTube channel a little bit. All right. So the first one we went to was Pompeii. And I didn't really want to go here, but my wife did. And I am so glad we did. And this is one of the ones that we had a tour group and a tour guide. And we had a bus that picked us up and transported us all the way down there. And then we had a tour group that we walked around with a tour guide and saw the ruins ourselves. And you cannot, unless you're a historian, I strongly recommend you not do it without a tour guide, because they provide you with such rich information that it brings a whole entire place to life. The second place that we went to was the Amalfi Coast. Again, not necessarily something I wanted to do, but I'm so glad I did it because it was absolutely beautiful. It was stunning. I've never seen anything like it. You're right there on the coast with these huge cliffs and these beautiful homes and these just picturesque little boutique areas, and it was just absolutely a wonderful sight. Make sure you bring your hiking shoes because there is a lot of walking and it's just eye candy. Bring an appetite because there's lots of places to eat and fashion and all these different things. It was a wonderful experience. And then the last place was Venice. This is the place that I wanted to go to. I'd already been here, but I knew that Venice was such a major attraction, and I'm terrified of it going underwater because I see things like this all the time where they're talking about the seas coming in and they're trying to keep it out and all that kind of stuff. And I felt like, I may not get a chance to see it. Well, maybe I was probably mistaken on that. I don't even know the facts surrounding that. However, what I do know is that when I was there, it was absolutely breathtaking. So those are 3 day trips that we took. I'm going to probably make a video talking about each one and what you can expect to see and do. But if you're in the city, don't think, hey, I have to stay in the city. There are tour groups that will take you outside the city and you can experience other parts of it. Now, we went to Venice. That wasn't a tour group. We just did that all by ourselves. We took the train and just experienced that without any tour guide experience. But there are things that you can do without a tour group, and there are things that you can do with a tour group. What do I recommend? I think if you're going to be abroad, things like Viator and other organized tour groups is a great way to move forward. They are proven true. And just so you know, I am not paid by anyone to make this video. So if I'm giving you a recommendation to use Viator, don't think that Viator is covering me on the back end somehow. I am not paid by anyone. This is just my honest opinion. If you're going to do it, you might as well spend the extra money and do it right. But go with a reputable tour group, and generally speaking, the more you pay tends to be the better service that you receive. And get someone that's reputable to take you somewhere that you want to go and see. What I find interesting is that sometimes you'll go on vacation and some things you'll think will be a major challenge, and it turns out not to be a challenge at all. And the language barrier was going to be one of them for me. I'm not strong when it comes to language, but I was there with my wife and my 4 kids. So there was help all along the way, and we were for the most part together all the time. So what I thought was going to be a major hurdle turned into be a nothing burger. We really didn't have any challenges. My wife did a lot of the planning. However, the navigation was sort of my forte. Me and my daughter figured that out. And working together as a team, the language barrier wasn't much of an issue at all. We didn't have any trouble whatsoever finding people who spoke English, and they were happy to help. Now, there was an occasion or two when, we ran into a little bit of difficulty. However, we got through that in maybe a minute and a half. So if you're concerned about the language barrier, that again, nothing burger. I, for one, had a great time in Europe, and I think if you visit, you will too. I hope you check out my channel for much, much more on my trip.